Okay, so we're back for another Gate Ruler deck profile. This one will be an Overlord deck profile focusing on Custodius, the Indomitable Guardian. So this is the ability to give owls and beasts +1 strike by using one of its charges. And it can enhance over an owl or a beast. So this deck is using a couple of beast synergies as well as mostly the Darkness or Abyss, summoning like kind of not really a core, I guess, but it is using a lot of cards from that like archetype. And then the whole point of Custodius is that to give you, all of your beasts and owl strike. And then other than that, this deck is pretty budget friendly because it uses some of like the older foils that may not be as used as much. And there's only, I think, like about 8 foils total. So we'll get into it. So the first two we have are 2 legends. So we have Von Rain, which is a very good double attacker. It does use both of our summoning caps, which is not too much of an issue. And then as well as 2 Mega Therion, mostly because he's a beast. So in this deck we have a way to Genesis summoning, but we can only Genesis summon for beasts because of the summoner we're using. So you can just get out 2 Mega Therion. But then the reason why these two are chosen is that they don't use up any counter spaces because our counter slots is actually like pretty set. So that way we can have different abilities that we need for our counters. But then these are just very good attackers to get through should you draw them. And because we are using Overlord, they only cost 1 to play. So like with Tomega Therion, it leaves us open to play other cards as well. Next we have 4 Shadow of Hades. So Hades is whenever he comes into play, or if you counter check, you can use his ability to special summon level 0 Owl card from our graveyard. He also has 3 strike, meaning that if you use Custodius, because he is an owl card, he will become a 4 striker, which means he'll just hit very hard. Next, we're running 2 White Dragon of Wales, so another owl card. And then it can also heal out some of our level 1 or less owls in our damage zone, so that way we can revive them with Hades, as well as it acts as a form of heal. Next we have is 4 Custodius, so this is the main part of the deck. So again, he can give all of your other owls or beasts +1 strike, which means that you'll just be hitting hard. So this is usually like to build up where, you go for like a final strike, and then you can also be special summoned when you counter check him, if you DR 3 owl or beasts, and you can special summon him to your attack zone. So this card is really so the counter check. So a lot of our DRs is saved specifically so that way we can use his, which is why some of the deck choices that I'll go over in a bit are the way that they are, and then we don't have like certain other like darkness cards that we could use. Like one of the biggest examples is like Vamel, the level 1 Dark Knight, the one that you can DR 2 to discard him from your hand and then you prevent 2 damage. The reason for that is because we really need our DR for like trying to hit him, as well as we do need our damage face up for like healing with like White Dragon of Wales. So next we have is Zahira, Nature's Emissary. So this is our only summoner, both Genesis as well as for Abyssal Summoning. So for Zahira, when it comes into play, you can special summon a beast of level 0, level 1 or less from your graveyard. It does die at the end phase, so it's not like you can just leave the beast there, it'll actually go away. But with Zahira, it'll let us bring out, if you want to use it as Genesis summoning, you can use it to bring back to Mega Therion, or you can bring out Custodius, because it can be any level 0 with Zahira, and then you'll be able to hit it since Custodius is only level 2. So if you want to so Zahira could be where you special summon the level 0 beast, or level 1 or less beast, and then you Genesis summoning Zahira with, say, like another card you may have already had on the field. You can go into Custodius, and then Custodius can enhance over that unit that you brought back with Zahira. And then Zahira also has Abyssal Summoning. And the interesting fact is that for Zahira specifically, its Genesis summoning Abyssal summoning works different than most. Most of them have a standard action to put itself in the graveyard, and then you get to Abyssal summon, meeting the requirements. However, in the Q&A that came out on the that came out from Gate Ruler was that Zahira doesn't actually put itself into the graveyard. It just is standard action to, perform Abyssal Concerto on one of your units in your graveyard, and then you get to special summon. So Zahira doesn't actually leave the field, which is actually somewhat of a good thing, because you can leave Zahira in like your defense zone, and then you can Abyssal summon something else. So that way it's like you keep a unit around. You're not just playing it and getting one unit out of it. You end up getting, 2 units itself, and then whatever you Abyssal summon if you don't use it for its Genesis summoning. There's also another combo later on that we'll go over. It doesn't happen too often because of the requirements you need to activate it. But it does work with Zahira that happened in like one of the games while playtesting it. Next we have 4 Lycanthrope Alpha. So this one has all the attributes we want. It's an owl. It's a beast, so you can bring it back with like Zahira. And it's also a darkness, which means we can use it for the Abyss Concerto. And it also has 2 strike, which is the main reason we're playing it. We also have 4 Cheshire Cat. So this is just a defensive unit. It doesn't have any of the attributes we actually need. But it is a way to keep ourselves alive, especially with Overlord, where everything costing 1 and you only have a summoning cap of 2. Usually you will have like 1 energy left over. And because we do end up reviving units with like Hades or with like Zahira, sometimes we do have that extra, energy or resource for the opponent's turn that we can use this as defensively, so that way we can last as long as possible. Next we have 4 Norwegian Forest Cat Sith. So it's an owl and a beast. And it can also be, again, special summon with Zahira. You can make it a level 1 with Zahira and then go into like Tomega Therion. Or you can just keep it as level 0 and you can go back into Custodius. But being an owl, it's also healable through White Dragon. And then we have 4 Nibelung. So again, owl and darkness. And it can also be used as 2 units for the Abyssal Concerto, or as well as it can also be a revival target. Even like Norwegian Catfolk can be a revival target for Hades as well. The next we have 4 Forest Fairies, so another owl that can be healed with White Dragon of Wales, as well as special summoned with Hades, mostly a defensive, so that way we can get through, or we can survive a bit longer, because it does have 5 HP, and it also gets rid of Breakthrough. If your opponent tries to attack it with Breakthrough, they don't get that extra damage through. And then we have 4 Beastfolk Barbarian. Mainly it's a beast. It's not really used for, like with Custodius, it's mostly used for its 5 attack to clear out, units in the center slot, so that way we can start attacking with the bigger strike units. Then we have 2 Ragdoll Cat sits. Just a decent counter. Just didn't want to max out at 4 White Dragon of Wales, and then this is also a unit or a beast for like Zahira to bring back that will always go into our graveyard because it is a counter, versus like some of the other ones could end up getting stuck, and then like Zahira sometimes ends up getting stuck if you can't Genesis summon into like Custodius or to Mega Therion. And then next we have 4 Astromancy. So it's just a standard draw 2, and because it costs 1 for us in Overlord, we use the 1 energy to play Astromancy, draw 2, and then after we can still summon our 2 units for our turn. So it just helps us get through our deck a little bit faster. And the last thing we have is 4 Fell Dragon Temples. So the main reason we're running this is that, as you may have noticed, for some of the owl units, or beast units specifically, they are not darkness. Again, the only Abyssal Concerto target we have is Hades, but even 3 darkness cards is actually kind of hard to hit. So we're actually running Fell Dragon for the first effect, for all of its effects actually. The first one is that while it's in play, your opponent can't target cards, so you can't remove anything with like Sky Strike, Arrow, or Shizuku Hime from the Yomajin front, the supernatural that removes 2 units. So it lets you, Abyssal Concerto, revive with Zahira, and, you get to keep your targets. But the second effect is actually the main one we want. So you want to always try to get 2 temples out as possible. Because the second effect is that anything that does not have a counter is also considered a darkness card. So that means you can start putting back like Cheshire Cats. You can put back like Norwegian. You can put back Beastfolk. You can put back Forest Ferry, or even other Zahiras back to Abyssal Summon units. And then the third one is actually pretty good too as well, where you can start pitching cards, because we do have a lot of zeros that don't do as much in our hand, and we can't deploy as many because we are drawing some cards with Astromancy, and because we are reviving, sometimes our hand gets stuck with a lot of these low costing units. So having that ability to once per turn, discard a card and then draw a card, it can be very helpful. And then the last effect is actually came up in one of the games where I had 4 out, and it says that if you have 4 more of these in play, each unit in your graveyard has Abyssal Concerto with remove 3 darkness cards from your graveyard from the game to summon them. So one of the games that happened was that I ended up with 4 of these in like pretty much the late game, and having Zahira being able to Abyssal Summon without getting rid of itself meant that I could continue Abyssal Summon as long as I could remove 3 darkness for that unit. So what ended up happening was, where I had Zahira in the 4, I placed Zahira in the center, I Abyssal Summon back like a Forest Ferry to bring it back out, and then afterwards I Abyssal Summoned Custodius, removed another 3 darkness, and then enhanced over the Forest Ferry. And then afterwards you could even I even had Tomega Therion and Von Rain in my graveyard as well, but I chose to bring back Tomega Therion because they did have a card in the center slot. So, but that let me, again, Genesis Summoning into it, and then you could use Custodius, and then you could actually attack through where, I had 4 strike on Tomega Therion with Breakthrough, and then 3 strike with Custodius, and then 3 strike from my ruler itself, which is able to finish off the game, since the game did go fairly long, so the opponent was pretty close to dead. But another interaction too is that if you have like multiple like White Dragon of Wales, you can actually Abyssal Summon it multiple times, because if you have, again, the 4 Fell Dragon Temples, it would let you constantly Genesis Summoning as long as you can remove 3 essentially darkness cards, which would be all of your non-counters because of the Fell Dragon second effect. You could actually heal out quite a bit of damage, but again, this is something that will like rarely ever happen, because getting 4 Fell Dragon Temples out is actually very hard. It's just that it just so happened that I ended up getting 4 because the game started going long, because I kept using like Cheshire Cats, to kind of stem damage. Sometimes I would hit like Hades off of the damage check, and then I would special summon, like a Forest Fairy, and then my opponent only had their ruler left, and they couldn't go through Forest Fairy because they didn't have enough power to go through it. But that is all for this deck list, for this deck profile. The deck description will be in the description below as well. And then throughout the, if you have any questions, or if you have any other decks that you would like to see, you can always comment below, and then I will get to them as soon as I can. But thank you for watching, and then I will see you guys in the next one.